What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about resetting fights in Fortnite Zero Build, because this is something that I see a lot of players get wrong when it comes down to playing the game. And also when the community discusses things like this, there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding. As always, if you guys do find this video to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. If you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything, it is EvolveJake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So with how Fortnite Zero Build plays out, there will surely be times where a fight starts out that's on bad terms for you, especially if you're active on the map. If you're just hiding all game and playing really safe, you can avoid this probably. But if you're traveling around and looking for other players to fight, there's going to be times where, a common example of this would be someone surprising you and shooting you in the back with an AR, or third partying pulling up to your fight just after you finished and you're already weak. And in these situations, the enemy has an HP advantage on you. And what this translates to, and the way that I think it's best to view these situations, is they have a pressure advantage on you. And you're going to want to reset that situation and kind of reset that pressure. Because if you just let the fight play out as it already is, you're probably going to be going back to the lobby. And this causes so much confusion within the Fortnite community, from what it seems. Like I said, when players are playing this or just talking about it, what is resetting a fight versus just fully running away? Because there is very much a difference. What you want to do if you are losing a fight is use your mobility to get to some sort of cover. And then once you're there, you can make a decision about whether or not you're going to use heals, look to get damage on your opponent, or use more mobility to get even further away. And usually just running away and continuing to run away isn't something that is going to work out well for you unless you already have so much distance between you and the enemy. A lot of times, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this, you get a little bit of damage on somebody, you go to push them, and then they're just not defending themselves at all until you send them back to the lobby. And that is where I think the misunderstanding comes in. There's players that seem to understand that they probably need to defend themselves at some point to kind of change how this situation is going. And then there's players that just, they're panicking, they're trying to get out of there. And as I said, if you're far enough away, then running and just completely running is an option. But a lot of times it isn't going to work out, and it just results in, like I said, you just not defending yourself at all. The main thing that kind of determines how I want to play this is how far away the enemy is and how long it should take them to get to me, depending on what mobility item they're using, if they are using one. If they aren't really pushing you, then, you could just use your heals, no problem. But if they are pushing you, then you may not have as much time to heal as what you would like. You might have 2 seconds before they get to you, and you're not going to get a big pot. You're not going to get much heals off a big pot in that time, or a chug jug, or whatever you're using, right? And so if this situation just continues, and you pop a little bit of heals, shockwave away one time, pop a little bit of heals, shockwave away one time, if they're able to match you on shockwaves, you're just eventually going to lose. And so there comes times where it's best that you identify, this is an opportunity to get damage on the enemy, because someone chasing you is often very vulnerable and very susceptible to getting fried back. And this will allow you to kind of turn the odds of the fight. As I talked about before, this is very much viewed as a pressure thing. When they get damage on you and they're pushing you, they have pressure on you. If you get damage back on them, you get some of that pressure off of yourself and some of it back on them. And now things have turned, they've changed a bit. If you're both weak, the enemy kind of has to decide, should I continue pushing? Do I stop and heal now? And a lot of times the Fortnite community is very kind of scared about fighting if they're not full HP. So when you get damage back on them, they often just go to heal. And this is my first instinct, especially if I'm not super weak. Let's say I got shot in the back, I took 80 damage. I still have a good amount of shield. My first instinct is shockwave to some piece of cover, get right shoulder peek, and get damage back on them, because this can very easily be a fight that is flipped. With how ridiculous the Deadeye AR is, you might just be able to melt them and eliminate them before they even get to you. But if not, you might get so much damage that now you have the, advantage. And even if you're super weak, getting the damage back on them from a protected angle while they're pushing you gets that pressure off of you, as I touched on. And the main kind of scenarios that kind of pop up once you get damage on them is they kind of give up the pressure completely and back away and heal themselves. And so now you can decide, do I want to use my heals in, my peaceful kind of area that I've created for myself? Or do I want to continue pushing this enemy because maybe now you have more health than them? Or maybe you have them so weak and, you know, they still push you and they still just get on you. But now the fight is winnable for you. As I touched on, if you don't defend yourselves, a lot of times you're just slowly losing fights. And so you might have to fight an enemy while you're not full health, right? Like they might push into you and it might have been a way where like you just weren't going to be able to get away from this person. And so getting that damage on them as they push into you might make the fight winnable when they actually get to you. So like, just a quick recap, they probably back away and heal, which you can heal yourself or chase if you want. Or if they continue pushing you, at least you have somebody on you who is weaker than they otherwise would have been. Because in a lot of shooters, the person chasing is at a disadvantage to the person just waiting because, you know, they're pushing you in a predictable way. Depending on what mobility item they're using, they're pretty beamable. If someone's shockwaving directly at you, it isn't that hard to fry them. If they're wingsuiting at you, it isn't that hard to fry them. If they're smart with their mobility, you know, you might not do much damage to them, but a lot of times this is an opportunity for you to get damage back on them and for you to kind of control the fight and flip the fight on them. Right shoulder peek is so overpowered in Fortnite, and these situations where you're trying to reset a fight and heal gives you typically an opportunity where you will have right shoulder peek if you want it because enemies are pushing into you. So the main point is you're using this opportunity where the enemy is pushing you to get damage on them and either neutralize the pressure they had or get a pressure advantage yourself. And that needs to be your mindset when you're trying to run away in these situations. Not panic, not just like, oh, a fight is happening, I can't partake in this. It's what piece of cover near me can I get to and have right shoulder peek to turn this fight. Even if you don't want to completely turn the fight, getting damage back on them often will create a situation where you can heal. This is much better than just panic. The players who just run and panic don't address that pressure advantage they have, that the enemy has on them. They just want to run. And if you don't fight back, you're just buying yourself a little bit more time typically before you do get eliminated, unless the enemy just runs out of mobility, something like that. There will be times where you can get away. But if that is your default, is I'm just always running when a fight happens, or I'm always running when I take damage, and running to run and not running to create a situation where the fight is winnable for you, that is something that if you do want to get better at the game, you need to address, because I think that's one of the biggest difference makers between kind of like average players and maybe slightly above average players or above average players is what they do when they're at an HP disadvantage. Do you panic or do you look for an opportunity to turn that fight? I'll have a clip on screen now of an example of this. This is very common in this season. I get a little bit of damage on this person and push. I don't even think it was more than overshield. I was playing pretty lazy in this situation, but I'm just chasing him and he keeps shockwaving away using a bunker, shockwaving away using a bunker, shockwaving away and using a bunker, and never shoots at me at all. And I was playing pretty lazily here because I'd been playing for a while, and he doesn't shoot his gun at me. In a lot of these instances, I was susceptible to getting fried if he just shot his gun at me, but he was so against fighting that there was no way this was going to go other than me eventually killing him because he's not doing damage to me, unless I just completely ran out of mobility or something. But having shockwaves and katana, that probably isn't going to happen. And I watched replay mode, and it turns out he was drinking big pots every time he shockwaved away and bunkered. And the way the heal worked, he would start the animation but not get much HP, and then have to shockwave away and bunker again, wasting his big pot. So it eventually got to the point where he has no heals, pretty much no more mobility, and he's dead, and he never defended himself. And this is kind of like an extreme example of something that happens very commonly in this game. And situations like these are why double mobility is so prevalent, and it's so good to have. Having the katana and the shockwaves gives you a distinct movement advantage on pretty much everybody else in the lobby, unless the enemy has this as well, and then you're just neutral. But having a mobility advantage gives you more options when it comes down to resetting a fight, and allows you to outpace the enemy if needed. You can shockwave away and katana to right where you need to get to and buy yourself more space, buy yourself more time to maybe heal a little bit if you need to, get shots on them if you need to. With double mobility, you just buy yourself more options in a fight, and that really shines through in these situations where you're trying to reset a fight or if you're trying to chase an enemy. In this kind of situation, also impacts the mobility items I prefer a lot, because I've talked a lot on this channel about how I don't think the wingsuit is that great. And I think shockwaves and the Forsaken Blade are the best mobility items. They're the best mobility items in a pinch. If things are going bad and you need to get out of there now, nothing's better than a shockwave grenade. Maybe the rift to go, but like just throwing a shockwave and being somewhere else is very good in these moments when a fight isn't going your way. And the katana has more of like a ramp up time animation, but it's still much better than the wingsuit, who has a very slow animation and a very slow predictable path when it comes to trying to escape a fight. And then on the flip side of this, pushing, the wingsuit also isn't great in that. If somebody's pushing me with a wingsuit, I'm very happy about this, and that's going to be the easiest kind of flip on that fight possible if you do kind of shoot at them when they're going to push you. So hopefully this made sense. It's kind of simple, but it's something that a lot of people struggle with. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.